Hey dudes, welcome back. In this video today, I'm going to show you how to create these procedural leather textures in Blender, no add-ons, just good old-fashioned shading. We are going to make a classic black leather texture with a slight UV sun fade look, as you can see with the lighter spotting, and we are also going to do a brown leather texture with a slightly oxidized dye faded look to give it that discolored, worn aesthetic. Before we get started with everything, hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel out and keeps the videos flowing. Okay, let's start off by adjusting our scene settings. We want to go right here into the render engine right here and change that from Eevee to cycles. We also want to change the device settings from CPU to GPU compute. Let's also, under the viewport right here, let's change the max samples and decrease them to 25 so we can check our rendered view really quickly. And let's also enable denoise. Let's get rid of this default cube right here and replace it with a UV sphere. Let's make sure that it is shaded smooth. And with all of that done, we are ready to start texturing. Okay, let's get started with the black leather texture. Let's pop into the shading panel right here. Let's get a little bit closer to the sphere and let's click new to enable a new node setup. And let's change the name of the material to black_leather. And let's just start off with adding a noise texture right here. And then we can add a color ramp so that way we can get the colors going properly. And we'll just connect the factor of the noise texture right here to the factor of the color ramp and the color of the color ramp to the base color of the principal BSDF. And what we want to do is let's get this black texture, this little black slider right here. Let's just get this right under the G, right about there. And we want to change this white. Let's get this to a nice gray, somewhere right around here. We just want to nudge this white just a little bit down and to the left, and let's bring this slider down pretty far. I think I want to bring it up to right about here, so it's about, I'd say 10-ish, maybe 15%-ish, maybe even a little lighter. Let's just make that a tiny bit lighter. There we go. And let's just drag this right about here to where it's right around, right under the E and the A of a linear right there. And what I want to do is also just click this to add a new little slider right there, and I'm going to drag that to where it's just about under the minus sign right here, and I want this to be the exact same color as this slider so they're both nice and uniform, and that is a good start. That's where we want things to begin. And what I also want to do right now, just to make sure everything is sort of in the right direction, is I want to adjust the roughness and the coat. Let's bring the roughness down to 0.35 because I feel like that really suits leather nicely. And with the coat right here, what we want to do is let's just increase the weight to 0.095, and let's also increase the roughness to about, I'd say 0.185. I feel like the coat settings along with the roughness just really tie the details together. Okay, so what we can now do is head right back here, and what we want to do is we want to introduce a Voronoi texture to this setup so we can use it to drive the noise texture. So I'm going to just bring that right here, and I want to take the distance and I want to plug it into the scale. And now at this point, I'm going to switch to rendered view mode so I can see everything a little bit better. And what I want to do is just pop in here and I want to change these settings real quick. Let's get this F1. Let's change that to F2. And let's also change right here the distance metric. Let's change that to Manhattan. And I also, with the Voronoi texture selected, I want to hold down Control and press T, which if you have the Node Wrangler add-on selected, you can bring up the texture coordinate and mapping node. I'm going to connect the object to the vector right here. And right now, what we want to do is we want to increase the scale of our Voronoi texture. Let's increase that to 20, and let's also increase the detail to 15. And as you can see, we're starting to get a somewhat more of a natural leather looking sun faded look already. Now let's just pop over here and let's increase the detail just a little bit on this noise texture. Let's increase that to 3. And that is looking pretty good. I'm going to leave the rest of the settings right here under the noise texture alone. And I'm also not going to do anything to the Voronoi texture. We're going to leave that be. This is going to be a bit of a simple, more of a simple, straightforward texture. So right now we're just going to drag these over here. And what we want to do to really make this texture pop is add a bump node to give it that surface depth and detail. So I'm just going to hold down Shift and press A to bring up the menu. And let's add our bump node. And let's drop it right there. And I want to take the color ramp's color right here and plug that into the height. And I want to plug the normal into the normal right here. And what I want to do is increase the distance. I want to increase this to 0.02. And as you can see right away with that light, it just gives it that natural sort of look that really gives it that leather look to it. As you can see with certain leathers, they're not all perfectly flat, uniform black color. Sometimes, as you can see with like sun and other sort of, distress, they just get like a little gradation from their original dyes. So I think that looks pretty good. And, you can definitely mess around with the settings. We can play with the scale of the Voronoi texture right here to, just make it a little bit more dense or whatever. I think it looks pretty good at 20. So if this is the look that you're going for, we are done with this one and we are ready to move on to our brown leather texture. Okay, let's get started on our brown leather texture. Let's start off by duplicating our UV sphere and moving it on the X-axis really quick. And let's just click the X right here so that way we can just clear all of that previous texture data. And let's click new right here and let's rename this brown leather. Oh, I accidentally hit the caps right there. Boom. Okay, and what we want to do is we're going to just change the roughness really quick. We're going to change that to 0.350 like we did before. And we also want to go down to our coat really quick. And we want to change those settings to like before. We're going to do 0.095 for the weight. And we're also going to increase the roughness to 0.185, just like before. Okay, so now what we can do is we're going to just add a wave texture that's going to be the primary driver in all of this. So let's start off with that. And we're going to drop that right here. And let's add our color ramp. Okay, and let's connect the factor of the wave texture to the factor of the color ramp and the color to the base color of the principal BSDF. And real quick before we get started messing with the color, let's just change some settings. Let's change it from the wave type from bands to rings. And let's also change this rings direction to spherical and also the wave profile to triangle. All right, that's just the base settings we need going forward. So anyway, what I want to do is I'm going to drag this black slider right here to basically where it's right between the G and the B of the RGB right here. And what I want to do is I want to change this color right here, this white. I want this to be a brown color. So I'm going to just drag this guy to about right here. You could finesse the colors to what you feel like works best, but I'm going to just drag this slider down now to about right. I feel like a little bit higher. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Just feel them out, whatever works for you. And I'm going to drag this slider to right about here where it's about aligned with the E in linear. And I'm also going to click this right here to add a new color stop. And I'm going to drag this one to about pretty far over here. I want this one to be a little bit of a darker brown. It already is a little bit of a darker brown. I think I'm just going to take what I have here. I'm going to bring this up just a tiny bit. And I'm going to just drag this down to right about here. I like that. I want it to be definitely a darker brown to a black and then a lighter brown. I think that works out really nicely. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to just select our wave texture and we're going to hold down Control and T to bring down the texture coordinate and mapping node if you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. And let's just connect the object to the vector right here. And what we want to do is we want to add a noise texture so that way we can alter the scale of the wave texture. That's how we do it here. So let's hold down Shift and press A, and we're going to add a noise texture. And we're going to connect the factor to the scale right here, just like that. And it already makes a pretty big difference in how everything looks. But what we also want to do is connect the vector right here from the mapping. Let's connect that to the vector of the noise texture, and it just distributes everything a little bit more evenly and nicely. And what we also want to do now is add a Voronoi texture. And that's going to also influence the scale of the noise texture right here. And I'm going to just connect the distance to the scale. And I also want to change the setting on the noise texture right here. Let's change that to 4D. And right now things are looking a little weird, but that's okay. We're going to make some changes here. So what we want to do is we're going to come over to the Voronoi texture, and let's just change the F1 right here, the feature output. Let's change that to smooth F1. And then let's also come down here and let's change the distance metric. Let's change that to Manhattan. And things are already looking a little bit better, but we're going to have to make some changes. Let's increase the scale right here. Let's increase that to about 40. And let's increase the detail to 15. And once you do that, it starts to get a bit more of a natural look right off the bat. And with the other settings right here, we're just going to leave those completely alone. And we're going to just pop over right here to the noise texture right here. Let's just increase the detail to 3. Just gives it a little bit more of a detail, not too much more. And right up here, what we want to do is just right with the detail of the wave texture, we want to increase that to 15. And right away, we just have like a pretty nice texture, but we need that bump node, as you probably could expect. We're going to just we're just going to drag this out over here, and I'm going to add a bump node. I'm going to drop it there. I'm going to connect the color of the color ramp right here to the height and the normal to the normal. And I'm going to increase the distance to like we did before. So it's going to be 0.02. And it just really ties everything together. So in terms of the overall look, I feel like this definitely captures that sort of that look of leather that has been a bit more oxidized, a little bit more faded from like the, the dye fade look. I feel like that definitely makes that it captures that look. So what we should try now is let's add a plane. Let's bring this down on the Z-axis right here, and let's just scale it by 20 on the numpad, make it pretty big, and let's select it, and let's just assign it the brown leather texture, and we'll make that texture its own material. And let's just come over here, and let's just increase the scale. Let's try, let's increase it to 4.5. Yeah, that's good. And let's just pop into the camera view mode. Yeah, let's just move things around a little bit. I want this to be right here. I'm just going to change the position a little bit. Yeah. I can tell that I'm going to need to increase the bump on the ground plane texture a little bit. Sometimes when you just change the scale of textures, the bump nodes don't really have the exact same look to them. So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to just duplicate this light and move it on the x-axis right here. And then let's duplicate both lights and rotate them on the z-axis. So that way we just get a better view of the scene. I'm also going to move those two lights on the y-axis just a little bit. Yeah. And let's go back to the ground plane, and let's increase the distance to, let's increase it to 0.08. Yeah, and as you can see right away, it just looks a lot better on the ground plane. If you're using something a little bit smaller, you can adjust the bump node to what works, but as you can see, the larger a mesh is, sometimes it behooves you to increase the bump on that. And let's pop into the layout panel right here and take another look from camera view. Yeah, I think those leather textures look quite good. So yeah, I hope this video helped you guys out in your various projects. I hope that you had some fun and learned something new while you were checking this video out. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Like I said, it really helps the channel out and helps me keep those videos flowing. Hope you guys have a good weekend out there. Create something cool and have some fun. Take it easy out there.